Hey everybody, what's going on? Helmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk about Blade of the Ruined King and kind of break down why the item's made such a big resurgence and honestly why it needs to be nerfed. Which I know immediately people are going to be saying, oh, you just think it needs to be nerfed because it's buffed and it's everywhere. And I do think that's a good indicator of why it should be nerfed, but I don't think that's the real reason. The primary reason I think Blade of the Ruined King needs to be nerfed is that it's too good for what it does. Now, what I want to do is I want to break down kind of how AD carry itemization works. Right now, AD carries build attack damage and attack speed. They basically multiply their attack damage by building attack speed. This allows them to get more auto attacks, therefore making any attack damage they purchase much more valuable because they can do more damage over time. And generally speaking, AD carry itemization of late has been BF Sword into a Zeal item, into completed Infinity Edge, into usually armor penetration or lifesteal, kind of depends from there. But those are your first two items. And once they reach those items, they get their first major power spike because they have their core itemization completed. And this takes a lot longer to reach. Some champions don't need as many items, some champions need fewer items, and especially AD carries are sitting on components for a lot longer than other champions. If I'm playing, let's say, Darius up in the top lane, the first thing I'm going to have is a Black Cleaver. I'm going to rush that. As soon as that's done, I power spike immediately. AD carries, meanwhile, buy a BF Sword, which kind of helps, not so much. Then they'll have a Zeal, kind of helps, not so much. Then their Zeal items completed. They're still not really that power spiked. Then Infinity Edge is done. Now they're finally ready to really participate in fights and be a core member of their team. That takes a reasonable amount of time for AD carries to do, and that's part of the reason why AD carries are so gold dependent, because they need to get as much as possible to scale up, because without their itemization they don't do any damage. Now, here's the problem with Blade of the Ruined King. It gives attack damage and attack speed in the same item. And this is a big deal because this means that AD carries are no longer dependent on a mid-game power spike. All they have to do is complete Blade of the Ruined King, and they have everything they really want on top of tank busting, on top of lifesteal, on top of a killer active. That's a lot of stuff to have in one item, and it undercuts an AD carry's primary weakness. They're not supposed to be good early. They're only supposed to scale in the mid-game to late game. Blade of the Ruined King essentially negates that by giving them too much attack damage and too much attack speed too early on in the game, and it means that AD carries like Lucian, who can use the item very, very effectively, are suddenly really good because they just build BOTRK and they have everything they want. And if you really think about it, there are only two other items in the game that do this, Ginsu's Rageblade and Trinity Force, and both of these items suffer from the fact that they grant AD carry stats that they don't really need most of the time. Obviously, Kog'Maw and Tristana, to a certain extent, can make use out of things like Ginsu's Rageblade, and Ezreal really likes Trinity Force, but for the most part, AD carries can't build Trinity Force or Ginsu's Rageblade without it feeling really bad. So that's why those two items aren't built, and that's why they're a little bit safer of picks that I'm more alright with being in the state that they're at. However, the big issue for me is that Blade of the Ruined King works on every AD carry. There's no one except maybe Corki who feels bad about building Blade of the Ruined King. Every single AD carry can put that in their build and say, yeah, no, this is pretty good. And that's a problem because for a while we had really nice AD carry itemization. Basically, there were different kinds of carries. They would want to build different kinds of items or follow different build paths. You had your lethality builders, you had your crit builders, you had Kog'Maw. You had a lot of really interesting things and different choices to make while you were building items. And currently, the problem is that Blade of the Ruined King negates a lot of that. Basically, if you can use Blade of the Ruined King, you're good. If you can't, you are literally subpar because you can't take full use of this item. And the biggest problem, another problem I have with it is that it beats out traditional AD carry itemization because it has discrete power spikes. You get your Cutlass, you power spike. You build a recurve bow, you power spike. And you don't have that like I was talking about before with AD carry itemization. Your Zeal is kind of a power spike. Obviously, your first completed Zeal item, like a rapid fire cannon or something, is good, but it's not the same as Blade of the Ruined King, and it takes a lot longer for you to reach that point. So it's still a problem. And then on top of that, Blade of the Ruined King is also good against both tanks and squishies. Attack damage and attack speed obviously being really good against everything, except people who build armor. Well, surprise, Blade of the Ruined King gives me a passive and an active that let me deal damage based on your maximum health. So I'm just going to continue doing damage no matter who I'm hitting. This is a problem. basically where I want to see Blade of the Ruined King taken in, because I do think it's overtuned at the moment. I think Blade of the Ruined King honestly suffers from a major design flaw, because it does give every stat an AD carry would want except something like crit, but crit isn't really even a necessity for AD carries. So what really needs to happen, and what I would love to see this item go, is I would like to see Blade of the Ruined King pushed into more of a tank busting role. Perhaps eliminating the attack speed on it, or eliminating the attack damage on it, and making it more refined as this is what to build when you're trying to kite tanks. Removing the attack damage, I think, would probably do this. It puts it in a spot where you have lifesteal to heal up while the tank's trying to kill you. You have attack speed, so it makes it easier to kite backwards. And then you have the tank busting passive and the tank busting active. I think that would be a good place for Blade of the Ruined King to be in. It would solve some of the problems we're currently seeing with it, as you would then have to build actual attack damage in order to compensate for it. AD carry would start spiking in the mid game again, and that's totally fine. They should be spiking in the mid game. They should not be finishing one item and instantly being combat ready. But anyways, that's just me. I want to know your guys' thoughts on Blade of the Ruined King. Let me know if you think it's OP, if you think it's underpowered, if you think it's totally fine where it is. Go ahead and drop a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like. If you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday and Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will talk to you all later.